We now take the subject of outgoing Premier Job Mokgoro's resignation further with political analyst Professor Sethulego Matebesi. Very good afternoon to you, Prof, and thank you for your time today. So we are hearing Premier Job Mokgoro saying that the reasons for his replacement are baseless. We also have seen him really taking a long time to submit this resignation, and also even before the submission of his resignation, the next candidate for Premier already been announced to the public. What are the dynamics of the ANC politically in the Northwest right now? What is really unfolding there?
Hi, good afternoon, Tammy, and good afternoon to South Africa. As baseless as these, charges or whatever, insinuations coming from the Northwest ANC might be 7 days ago, the question is, why did the Premier even resign, the former Premier resign after meeting the President? So he took the President into confidence, and I strongly believe there might have been pressure even from the President to say the Job Mokgoro is fighting a losing battle, he had to resign. What is happening in Northwest Province is actually indicative of the ANC at national level and several other provinces. Individuals fighting for the soul of the African National Congress, and it all depends on which camp you support, irrespective of whether you are advancing the fight against corruption or whether you are advancing the interest of South Africans. If you don't listen to the dominant faction, you will get tremendous pressure. And I strongly believe this is what happened to the former Premier Job Mokgoro.
So where would you place him then? You've made a very clear distinction between those who are fighting corruption and those who are not, and who are perhaps furthering their own interests. In your assessment, where does Premier Job Mokgoro fall in that spectrum?
Very difficult if you look at the political stature of Job Mokgoro. I thought maybe he's a strong ally of President Cyril Ramaphosa, and whether he was not, back of the matter, for the mere fact that he was fighting corruption, I thought perhaps he will get a thumbs up from the current ANC IPC structure in Northwest Province, but it seemingly didn't go. The problem sometimes is, and I want to correct one, misconception here. It doesn't mean if you support or close to President Cyril Ramaphosa, your hands have not been in the cookie jar. And it's only people who have been aligned to the former President, Jacob Zuma, who are so-called, people who seems to have, had their hands in the cookie jar. So even within the ranks of those who are supporting the current president, you will still find people who are conflicted, and hence there is a fight back from those, irrespective of which camp they are, against those who are advancing the fight against corruption. But the question is this for service delivery? Because remember, we're also speaking about a very significant situation in South Africa where even the Premier's office were also under administration. So that also tells you the chaotic situation in terms of administration in that particular province.
Let me ask you this, Professor. Some are saying that Bushimape is a compromise between those who would be supporters of, former Premier Mahoma and those who are in alignment with the IPC, who were put in place by Luthuli House. What is your assessment of this?
Well, it might be a compromise or a so-called middleman that is only for politics or politicking. The question is, will Bushimape come in and deliver basic services? If you compare Eastern Cape and Northwest Province in terms of service delivery, it's a huge problem. And I don't think this vicious cycle of recycling political leaders at the helm of the African National Congress in the provinces will necessarily now suddenly, change the lax attitudes towards, service delivery, which is happening at municipal level. Yes, another challenge will be, is he the right person that will unite the African National Congress. Remember, the ANC is not far from an elected conference, and I strongly believe perhaps this is also one way behind the scenes type of, shenanigans to try and consolidate the power of whoever, because remember, it is provinces who, at the end of the day, will determine who becomes the next president of the African National Congress.
You'll remember, Professor, that Premier Job Mokgoro did have a meeting with the Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, Jesse Duarte, on the night of the 17th of August, which is when earlier on the new Premier designate was announced. There was that meeting, and then no resignation was coming forth even after that meeting. Then there was the meeting then with the President. And only after the meeting with the President has Premier Job Mokgoro attended his resignation. What do you think perhaps could have transpired there? Could he have maybe been promised another position somewhere else that made the resignation a less bitter pill to swallow?
Yeah, well, it's going to be very difficult to predict what emanated or what happened, transpired during the meeting with the president. But I have said it on numerous occasions. You find delegates that have been sent to provinces, to districts, to go and deal with challenges that our ANC is experiencing. But those delegates are also conflicted. And I don't want to say now the Deputy Secretary of the African National Congress has also been conflicted, but perhaps it's also an issue of authority or respect. And the former Premier made it clear he wants to meet with the President, and it's only then that he will make up his decision, perhaps because he might have assumed that he has been appointed by the President. So that will be my response to that. But we should not be surprised. We have seen this several times where somebody has been removed at provincial or even at municipal level and then suddenly appears somewhere else. And this is definitely something which I don't think is the end of Job Mokgoro. We might just see him in another role, in not necessarily in Northwest Province, but somewhere else in South Africa.
Professor Matebesi, thank you very much for your analysis this afternoon. That's Professor Matebesi, political analyst.